Hello again, my name is Charles Sabo, and I'm doing another teaching video on the book of Isaiah. Um, I'm doing chapter 14 today. This is all derived from a book that I've written in 2018 and 19, had it published in 2020, January of this year. If you haven't seen the book, I'll show you what it looks like. It's a college textbook, hardback binder. You can use it in seminary, you can use it in college, you can use it in Bible studies. It opens your eyes to some of the things that Isaiah had proclaimed that are kind of hard to decipher on your own. I did some extensive research. Okay, the Lord has brought me many truths. So I'm doing chapter 14 today. Chapter 13 does explain about Babylon, spiritual Babylon and physical Babylon. The destruction of the Babylon of the Chaldees is prophesied in chapter 13, and then Isaiah also rolls into the destruction of spiritual Babylon. And so spiritual Babylon will exist until the time Jesus destroys them. Actually, Mystery Babylon the Great is destroyed actually by the 10 kings, the 10 kingdoms, the 10 kings. So Mystery Babylon the Great is destroyed before Jesus' return. So, but very close to the time. If you read Revelation 17 and 18. Now, if you want to get a good breakdown of Revelation 17 and 18 and the destruction of Babylon, Mystery Babylon the Great, you can go to my Bible commentary on the book of Revelation. Okay, that was written in the end of 2019 and finished in 2020 and published in May of 2020. Okay, great for Bible studies as well. So chapter 14 then picks up at the second coming. Okay, so let's go into it because it rolls into some interesting stuff. Chapter 14 picks up the continuation of prophecy which chapter 13 spoke of to this point. The prophetic chapter resumes time for after the 70th week of Daniel, 7-year tribulation. The Lord has returned in this case, and he rules with an iron fist. Starting in 14:1, Isaiah lays out what the Lord will do with the remnant of people on the earth who were not destroyed at Armageddon. Yes, there will be survivors, mortals, who the Lord will let live and provide them opportunity to repent, honor, and obey him. These are people that still aren't believers, believe it or not. Zechariah 14 talks about the millennial kingdom and how people were supposed to come to Jerusalem on the Feast of Tabernacles. Those that do not will be cursed with drought and plague. So you know that the millennial kingdom will have defectors, and so chapter 14 talks about the strangers, the people that are mortals, okay, that are going to be dwelling near or with Israel. Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's go with verse 1. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. All right, so Jacob and Israel are the same person in the book of Genesis. But Jacob is non-believing while he became believer and became renamed Israel after rolling with the Lord in the wilderness. If you can read, I can't remember what chapter that's in. I'm sorry for not bringing that up to you. But with that in mind, the Lord will have mercy on Jacob, the non-believing Israel, and will yet choose Israel, the believing Israel, and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, believing Israel, right? And they shall cleave to the house of Jacob, and they shall cleave with non-believing Israel, right? Now, with the millennial kingdom, there will be children of Israel living in the full inheritance of the land, as was first promised to Abraham in Genesis 15:18. Then again specified for the future in Ezekiel 47:14 through 20. We can know this to be for after the return of the Lord, because this kind of covenant could never come to pass in the current age. And I'm going to read you Ezekiel 47:21 through 23 just to show you. So shall you divide this land unto you according to the tribes of Israel. And it shall come to pass that you shall divide it by lot for an inheritance unto you, and to the strangers that sojourn among you, which shall beget children among you, and they shall be unto you as born in the country among the children of Israel, and they shall have inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel. Notice the strangers are going to dwell with them, according to Ezekiel, and gain an inheritance of the land as well. Verse 23 says, and it shall come to pass that what tribe the stranger sojourns, they shall be there shall you give him his inheritance, saith the Lord God. Now, if they sojourn and live in the land of let's say Benjamin, well, the strangers will also receive an inheritance in the land of Benjamin too. That's kind of the gist of the issue here. Isaiah said it first, then Ezekiel confirmed it. The total inheritance of the first promised borders promised to Abraham will be given to Israel, also given to the Gentiles who sojourn and live within the borders of the land. The strangers will understand that the children of Israel are God's favored people, when they will be expected to be near them and eventually want to fellowship alongside of them. Okay? Notice this isn't happening now. There's so many anti-Semites. There's so many people trying to take Israel's land that you can tell that this isn't going to happen until the Lord returns. Okay? Easy to place this. All right. Now, verse 2. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids. And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. Now here you have it. These people that had been enslaving Israel during the 70th week of Daniel will eventually be taken as captives themselves and be made servants and handmaids. That's what Isaiah is saying here. Them, the pronoun them in here, right here, take them, refers to the strangers of verse 1. The explanation is brought forth towards how they had come to be in the land. They were taken at first as spoil from the battle, right, or as servant captives after the battle. We can look to what Ezekiel had proclaimed concerning the post-Gog of Magog battle. Okay, now Gog of Magog is going to happen during the 70th week of Daniel. It's not going to happen at the end. It's going to happen at the beginning. And if you are not sure about that or heard different things, that book of Revelation that I have here, it does explain it in detail. I explained the wars. I think I explained it in. I might have explained it in chapter 6 with the second horse. So if you want to refer to that, you can. I also explain the captivities and so forth in the book of Joel and Zephaniah as well. Ezekiel 39:10, so that they shall take no wood out of the field, neither cut down any of the forest, for they shall burn the weapons with fire, and they shall spoil those that spoil them, and rob those that rob them, saith the Lord God. Now this can be a long-term prophecy, verse 39:10. It's after the battle of Gog of Magog. All right, the after effects. Well, this can go into even the millennial kingdom. Now, they took spoil of those that spoiled them. They robbed those that robbed them. You can see it kind of fits in with what's being said here. Zechariah 2:9 declares that the Lord will shake his hand upon the oppressors, and they will be spoiled captives to their former servants, Israel. He follows in Zechariah 2:10 to say that he will dwell in the midst of them. Jesus will. That would make the time spoken of in Zechariah 2:9 the millennial kingdom as this would be. So you can see Zechariah 2 talks about this, Isaiah 14 talks about this, Ezekiel 39 talks about this, Ezekiel 47 talks about this. So they all coincide together. Now verse 3, and it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall give you rest from your sorrow, from your fear and from the hard bondage wherein you were made to serve. We're talking Israel now, right? Oh, how the Jews had wearied themselves in their works performed in daily sacrifices and disciplines abided in within the Mosaic covenant. When the Lord comes back and the remnant of Israel repents and trusts in Jesus as their Lord God and Messiah, they will come to a place at rest. Israel will understand that the works of the laws of Moses will not be needed for their salvation. Matthew 11:28-30 says, "Come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden. I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and you shall find rest into your souls. For my yoke is easy, my burden is light." It means the same thing as what's being said in Isaiah 14:3. Right? Let's move on. Verse 4. That you shall take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, how has the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. The proverb against the king of Babylon comes across as a taunting of the fallen enemy. Habakkuk 2:6a says, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him? Right? Since Isaiah brought forth the proverb to taunt for the time after the Lord's return, we will find that the taunt is not against Babylon and the Chaldeans, but the king of the spiritual Babylon and his golden city, the religion. It's spiritual Babylon, it's a religion. Satan, his demonic realm, and dominion, who have done his work, are the oppressors and inhabitants of the city. All right? This is not Babylon of the Chaldees. This is Babylon, spiritual Babylon of the last days. It's existed for millenniums, and it's going to be destroyed during the 70th week of Daniel. And when Jesus comes back, it will have ceased. All right? So now we're going to look at verses 5 and 6 together. The Lord has broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers. The taunt continues to rejoice that the oppressors have ceased. With God the Son on the earth, his power will have defeated all evil rulers of those wicked who have afflicted evil. Verse 6 says, he who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger, is persecuted, and none hinders. He can refer to all wicked people of the earth, along with evil rulers who have continuously afflicted pain in their anger and persecuted the righteous. No one could stop it, because Satan, he, was the ruler of the earth. All right? So people have been misinterpreting this, but this is pointing at Satan. All right? Verse 7. The whole earth is at rest. Okay? Gee, is that now? Is that happening now, or has that ever happened? No. The whole earth is at rest when Satan is constrained and is quiet. They break forth into singing. All evil is gone. The evil realm, the demonic realm, the evil rulers, the persecutors, all have been destroyed, sent to hell. As the proverb taunt continues, the entire creation will notice that evil is gone and has been defeated. The earth will rejoice as their creator, Lord of lords, King of kings, walks the earth, and all evil will be subdued. The entire earth will break out into songs of rejoicing. Okay, following this? Verse 8. Yea, the fir trees rejoice at you, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since you are laid down, no feller has come up against us. Who is you? Right? What God has planted, the trees, people, man will no longer cut them down. In this case, it can be physical trees. Man will no longer cut them down without his permission. This points to the prideful kings of Assyria, who were arrogant and cut down the trees as military tactics to impose their human order over God's creation. But since you are laid down, no feather has come up against us. We need to determine who that is, right? And he goes on. It goes on and we explain it. Verse 9 is very informative of verse 8. Hell from beneath is moved for you to meet you at your coming. It stirs up the dead for you, even all the chief ones of the earth. It has raised up from their thrones all of the kings of the nation. All right, one can say, oh, isn't this for all the evil people? You is all the evil people? No. No, watch this. The proverb has moved from the earth and its inhabitants to hell and its inhabitants. This verse is as a stanza of the bigger poem or proverb. This stanza consists of 3 lines. Hell from beneath has moved or quaked for you to meet you at your coming. This leads into thoughts of who this might be that hell is quaking for. Hell stirs up the dead for who? The chief ones of the earth are already dead and in hell. Yet hell stirs them up for the arrival of you. Who is you is what you need to ask. Hell has raised up the kings from their thrones as they stand waiting for you. Who's he talking to? Who's you? If you are wondering, I will recite a verse in Revelation 20. You. Revelation 20, verse 1 and 3. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key to the bottomless pit, and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold of the dragon, the old serpent, which is the devil, and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, hell, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years shall be fulfilled. And after that he must be loosed a little season. Satan is being chained up in hell for 1,000 years. Hell quakes. The kings of the earth that are in hell already wait for him. They're waiting for him. This is talking to you, to him, to Satan. This is addressed specifically to Satan himself. For verses 8 and 9. We're going to come to verse 10. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't read this. After the Lord casts the Antichrist and false prophet into the lake of fire, he will continue to fulfill what he has planned from the beginning. The guest of dishonor within Isaiah 14:9 is Satan, and also known as Lucifer, the devil, the serpent, and dragon. Hell, the bottomless pit, is preparing for his arrival. The next few verses reveal amazing insights of what will be on the scene within the Revelation 21 verse 3 has Revelation 1 verse 3 has laid out. There's a scene on earth being laid out here. Verse 10. All they shall speak and say unto you, are you also become weak as we, and you become like us? The inhabitants of hell will see Lucifer for the first time in his fallen condition, subdued in a great chain. Right? Revelation 20 verse 1. He will be as weak as those mortals waiting for their final judgment. The inhabitants of hell were used to bowing to him and exalting him as their God. Yet at this time he will be as weak as them. Art thou become like us? Right? All right. Verse 11. The pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of your vials. The worm is spread unto you, and the worms cover you. The word pomp is translated from the Hebrew word ga'on, which is defined as pride, majesty, exaltation. Satan's pride is brought down to hell, subdued in chains. I'll read you Ezekiel 28:13. Got to find it. The workmanship of your tabrets and your pipes was prepared in you in the day that you were created. Right? The pomp. Lucifer was created as the Lucifer was created as the worship leader in heaven. His special workmanship, noise of your vials, was to make music for the worship of God. Jesus spoke of the worms, maggots, of death which never die. Lucifer will be covered with them, and it'll be on top of them. The worm is spread under you, and the worms cover you. Where their worm dies not, and fire is not quenched. That's Jesus describing hell in Mark 9:48. So look at that. Satan's in hell with the worms that never die. Right? Just as Jesus had said. Everyone in hell faces the same thing. Verse 12. This is an interesting verse because so many people misinterpret it because of the translators. How are you fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How are you cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations? Now, the Hebrew word Hallel only occurs one time in the entire Bible. Many translators want to say that it is defined as shining one, morning star, Lucifer. All right. God does not contradict himself and would never call himself and Satan the same name, morning star. He would never do that. If Jesus called himself the bright and morning star in Revelation 22:16, he would never compare himself to Lucifer, who is a cherub angel or shining one. God has disclosed why Lucifer was cast out of heaven. His pride had caused him to puff himself up because he was made so beautifully by God. God blessed him with great beauty and the gift of song. He was a walking musical instrument. His talents were probably magnificent. Read Ezekiel 28:17. Your heart was lifted up because of your beauty. You have corrupted your wisdom by reason of your brightness. I will cast you to the ground. I will lay you before kings, and that they may behold you. All right, kings may behold you. What did it say here? Where is it? Was it here? Oh, right here. I'm sorry. Cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nation. He was cut down to the ground. Now, verse 13. Continuation from the previous verse, verse 12. For you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, I will sit upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. The pride has built up so great in this cherub's heart, he actually feels that he could rise above God. I'll read you something from Ezekiel 28, verses 14 and 15. You are the anointed cherub that covers, and I will set you so. You were upon the holy mountain of God. You have walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. You were perfect in your ways from the day that you were created, till iniquity was found in you. This is Lucifer. Okay? Like mankind, pride is the evil which destroys. Satan believes in his heart that he can descend to the highest place in heaven and rule from God's throne over all the stars. Angels, stars. Stars is allegorical for angels of God. He wants all the God has, including his congregation of people. All right? Verse 14. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High God. Only God sits above the clouds. Only God is the Most High. The prideful statement is what details Satan's biggest motivation. He wants to be like God. He will stop at nothing to be like God. He wants to be omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, just as God is. He wants to make children in his image, just like God has. He wants to raise himself from above the clouds, the stars, and sit upon the high mount of the congregation of heaven. He wants to be as the Most High God. All right? Verse 15. Yet you shall be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. The prophecy of chapter 14 continues by revealing what will happen when Lucifer, Satan, is brought to the ground in plain sight for all to see him. How are you cut down to the ground? All right. Verse 28, 17b. I will cast you. Well, wait a minute. I think how art you cast is part of verse 15. I just separated it. Verse 28, verse 17b. I will cast you to the ground. I will lay you before kings, that they may behold you. All right. How art you cut down to the ground? Yet you shall be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. Now, In Revelation 20, verses 1 and 2, the angels will have a great chain and will bind Satan for 1,000 years. Revelation 23 reveals where Satan, Lucifer, will spend the 1,000 years. Cast him into the bottomless pit. This bottomless pit is hell, is the same pit in which which will be first opened by the time mentioned in Revelation 9, 1 verse 2. Notice that the pit is kept closed because in both Revelation, notice the pit is kept closed because the pit in Revelation 9 and 20, the angel has a key to open it. Satan, Lucifer, will be chained to the sides of the bottomless pit because it has no bottom. It will remain for 1,000 years and then will be loosened for a short time, which will then be given the chance to round up another army of the heathen to fight Jesus in Jerusalem. Revelation 27 through 9. One thing I want to add here, which I didn't add here yet, I think I'm going to though. In Revelation 9, verses 1 and 2, the angel comes down and unlocks the pit, the bottomless pit, hell. It stays open through the rest of the 7 years, the 3.5 years, the 1,260 days. Then on the day 12, 25, 20, after the Armageddon, what have you, the same angel comes back down and locks the pit back up after he casts Satan in it. After he chains Satan in hell, he locks it back up. Okay? All right, verse 16. They that see you shall narrowly look upon you and consider you, saying, Is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake the kingdoms? During the time that Jesus subdued Satan under the ground before the eyes of those in Jerusalem, those that see Satan will be amazed at how lowly and vulnerable he can appear during this event. They will ask one another in amazement, Is this the man that made the earth tremble, that did shake the nations? Those that know of Satan and all that he has done will be asking one another and saying to themselves these words, verse 17, in astonishment. Okay, so we're going to come to verse 17. I'm first going to read you Ezekiel 28:19a. All that know you among the people shall be astonished at you. That's Satan. All right. Verse 17. That made the world as a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners. Okay, as a continuation, there's people that are commenting on seeing Satan for the first time, saying to each other, Satan, they're commenting that he made the world a wilderness. Now, Satan has kept the world a wilderness of hopelessness, where war is each city's fate. He has kept the people enslaved in their sins, while hiding the truth about God's mercy and grace, that opened not the house of his prisoners. Doesn't Satan imprison everybody in lies and deceit? Doesn't he hide the truth of the gospel from everybody? So they're prisoners in their sins. People are prisoned in sins because they don't know the gospel. And why? Because Satan hides it from them. Verse 18. All the kings of the nations, even all of them, lie in glory, everyone in his own house. The next two verses here are an amazing thing to contemplate. Every king of the earth had died after they had ruled and were cast into hell. While some may have died in righteousness and are in heaven, right? All of them lie in the grave dead. All of them. I mean, even the righteous, their bodies are in the grave dead. I shouldn't say that because of the resurrection, but all of the unrighteous lie in the grave dead and lay their dead in their glory, each remembered of their earthly reign. The history books of the earth's remembrance of them are their glory, everyone in his own house. All right, think about this. All the kings that have ever existed lie in their graves and are remembered for the things they did. They remembered of their glory is remembered. Their kingdom is remembered. All the kings of the nations, even all of them, lie in glory, everyone in his own house. In his own house. All right? So, in their graves, they are lying in glory. All right? Just understand that the kings are lying in their own glory, because verse 19 explains in retrospect of that. But you are cast out of your grave like an abominable branch, and as the raiment of those that are slain, thrust through with a sword, that go down to the stones of the pit, as a carcass trodden under foot or under feet. But you, who's you? It's Satan, once again. This is a big but. But Satan, Lucifer, will be as someone that is slain in shame, an abominable branch, and cast to the bottomless pit with no glory to be remembered, right? No glory to be remembered by. He will be remembered for his failure, a carcass trodden underfoot. All of the kings who Satan had manipulated in doing things in their abomination to God will die in glory as they are remembered for what they had done. But Satan is cast into hell in shame as an abomination. All right? An abominable branch. Verse 20. You shall not be joined with them in burial, because you have destroyed your land and slain your people, and the seed of evildoers shall never be renowned. When Jesus comes back, all of Satan's people, remnant, will be cast into the bottomless pit, hell, before Satan is cast in Revelation 19:21 is when all those people are cast into hell. Satan's goals are to destroy all humans, including the remnant, because he knows that they will be cast into hell. His goal is to prevent all humans from inheriting God's kingdom. When all of his followers, remnant of evildoers, are destroyed by Jesus, Satan will have no one to mourn for him. Join with them in burial? Right? He's not joined with them in burial. Nor for each other. They will never be remembered, nor exalted for their task accomplished. All right? None of them. None of them will be renowned. Right? But Satan won't be renowned. They're all dying in shame. Verse 21 and 23. Prepare slaughter for his children, for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. The children of Satan are being destroyed, not only for what they have done, but also for all the evil they have done by the generations before them. Within this verse, we can find why this has to be done. The children of Satan has always been the ones who would rise up and possess the land, all lands, and build their cities. They would perform evil deeds and worship their father Satan, while they also would influence others to do the same. With Jesus on the throne during the 1,000 years, all the children of Satan will be cast into hell with Satan at the beginning of the 1,000 years. Right? That's from Revelation 20, verse 6. When Satan was cast into hell. Right? It said that the children of Satan will be cast in hell with Satan at the beginning of the 1,000 years. And so go to Revelation 20, verse 6. For I will rise up against them, saith the Lord of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name, remnant, and son, and nephew, saith the Lord. Isaiah comforts those reading these verses by reminding them who will be the one, I will rise up, the Lord, accomplishing verses 19 through 22. God, the Lord of hosts, will cut off spiritual Babylon, along with those who have embodied themselves as members of that occult community of people, remnant and son and nephews, right? I mean, it's a family matter. All the occult and their families. I mean, if you're born in a satanic family, you become a Satanist. It does. There are aberrations. There are some that will come out of evil families and become godly, but not very many. I will also make it a possession for the bittern in the pools of water, and will sweep it with the bosom of destruction, saith the Lord of hosts. Bittern is translated from the Hebrew word quipaud, which is defined as a shrinking animal or hedgehog. Since spiritual Babylon is intended for the target of verse 22, the shrinking animal or hedgehog needs to be allegorized as well, along with the pools of water. The hedgehog roots through hedges and hedgehog roots through hedges and other undergrowths. So allegorically, those inhabiting the spiritual Babylon will be hiding or existing in discrete places after the second coming. Water allegorically represents masses of people, Revelation 17:15. In this case, pools of people will inhabit spiritual Babylon while being discreetly hidden from the public. God has indicated, God has indicated that he will sweep it with the bosom or broom of destruction. He will sweep it clean both before and during the millennial kingdom. All right. Verse 24. The Lord of hosts has sworn, saying, surely as I have thought, so shall it come to pass, and I have proposed, so it shall stand. God is 100% sovereign of the whole earth. Everything that he has thought or predestined will come to pass. Everything that he speaks will come to pass. He will never fail to bring to pass anything that he has promised. Right? Verse 25. That I break the Assyrian in my land, and upon my mountains tread him underfoot. Then shall his yoke depart from off of them, and his burden depart from off their shoulders. Now this verse here confuses people. He's talking about Babylon, then he goes to the Assyrian. Right? Well, here, this is Isaiah speaking before the Assyrian Sennacherib coming and surrounding Judah and Jerusalem. Okay, I'm going to explain it here. Isaiah revisits the prophecy of Isaiah 10:32 through 33. As God reminds readers that he is in control and fulfills everything that he says will come to pass, he reminds them of the prophecy of destroying the Assyrian army in the mountains of Jerusalem. That event is still in the future to happen. I will, right? So he's, according to Isaiah, I will, being the Lord, will. It could be because it will be the first of many destructions of the enemy to come to pass, that he brings up here to assure that the destruction of all the evil that will come to pass as well. So it's an assurance. This is going to be coming to pass in the next 15 years or so. So when this comes to pass, you know that everything else I said is coming to pass in the future is sure to come to pass. That is the reason that he put this verse here. The reason is to bring a prophecy come to pass soon, to give everybody the faith to trust in everything that's going to come to pass in the distant future. Okay? Understand that. Israel's faith will be built up once they have witnessed the 185,000 Assyrians destroyed in the mountains. Isaiah 36 and 37. Isaiah wrote as a historian when it did happen. Isaiah uses chapters 13 through 23 to prophecy of 9 different nations' destructions, and Assyria's destruction will assure that the others will happen as well. That's why he inserted Assyria, the Assyrians, right here. The Assyrian is Sennacherib, King Sennacherib. Verse 26. This is the purpose that is proposed upon the whole earth, and this is the hand that is stretched out upon all nations. God has assured Isaiah's readers that his purpose for the final outcomes of all nations on the entire earth is predestined by him. God is 100% sovereign of all the events. Notice he's saying this is the purpose for all the earth, not Assyria and Judah. Right? So he's talking once again back to what he was talking about, Mystery Babylon, about Babylon, spiritual Babylon, about them being destroyed in chapter 13, and then Satan and his dominion in this chapter. Right? So he's assuring them it's going to come to pass. And he gave the Assyrian falling as an example so that when it does come to pass, they believe him in full of everything he's declaring here. Verse 27, for the Lord of hosts has proposed, who shall disannul it? And his hand is stretched out, and who shall turn it back? If the Almighty God, who is 100% sovereign, has predestined events to happen, no one can stop it from happening. Who shall disannul it? God uses the imagery of himself, having his hand stretched out, accomplishing his proposed events. He questions all who read this. Is there anyone who can stop his hand? Turn it back. This is what he's doing. Can you turn me back? No, you can't. He's God. Verse 28. In the year that King Ahaz died was this burden. This verse is linked to what Isaiah had said in verse 25. The burden of the Assyrian began for Judah after Ahaz's death. Judah's king Ahaz paid the king of Assyria silver and gold that was found in the house of the Lord, so the king of Assyria would defend Judah against Damascus of Syria. Now you can find that in 2 Kings 16:18-9. The relationship between King Ahaz and the Assyrians began at that point. Ahaz also built an altar in Jerusalem, which he had seen in Damascus when he met Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, 2 Kings 16:10. He worshipped the gods of Syria, since he believed in the Syria's gods helped them, 2 Chronicles 18:23. Judah's relationship ended with the Assyrians when King Ahaz had died. His son Hezekiah was not like Ahaz, and therefore the king of Assyria came up against Judah to take it captive. So the burden of the Assyrian began at Ahaz's death. Isaiah 14:25. All right. Rejoice not you, who whole Palestina, because the rod of him that smote you is broken. For out of the serpent's root shall come forth a cockatrice, and his first shall be a fiery flying serpent. This is totally misinterpreted by many theologians. Now look at this. God sends a warning to the Philistines, who had been dominated by Judah and Israel, beginning with the reign of King David, until the time of the captives of Israel and Judah. When Israel and Judah had humbled, God warns the Philistines not to glory in it. When Israel and Judah are humbled, God warns the Philistines not to glory in it. If King David was the first to dominate over the Philistines and subdued them, then David was the serpent. The serpent David had a root descendants. Out of David's descendants will come a cockatrice, a poisonous serpent, whose works will be a fiery flying serpent, who worse than the original serpent. A son of David, Jesus Christ, will come and be more dominating than David. So it's a messianic prophecy. All right? And I will read you something in Zechariah 2:4-6. For Gaza shall be forsaken, and Ashkelon in desolation. They shall drive out Ashdod at the noonday, and Ekron shall be rooted up. Woe to the inhabitants of the seacoast, the nations of the Chetherites, and the word of the Lord is against you. O Canaan, the land of the Philistines, I will even destroy you, and there shall be no inhabitant. And the seacoast shall be dwelling in cottages for shepherds and folds for flocks. That's Zechariah 2:4-6. In Zechariah 2, the destruction will be on the entirety of Philistines. There shall be no inhabitant. Because the Palestinians still inhabit Gaza, we can rest assured that this is yet to happen. Right? All right, verse 30. And the firstborn of the poor shall feed, and the needy shall lie down in safety. And I will kill your root with famine, and he shall slay your remnant. The poor and needy will be the remnant of the house of Judah, who will dwell in the houses of the Palestinians. All right? Palestinians. That's per Zechariah 2, verse 7. This will be when the Lord returns and turns away their captivity within the 70th week of Daniel. At the end of the 70th week of Daniel. The Lord will kill the root descendants of the Palestinians with famine and slay the remnant in its entirety, according to what's being said here by Isaiah. Verse 31. Howl, O gate, cry, O city, you whole Palestina are dissolved. For there shall come forth from the north a smoke, and none shall be alone in their appointed times. The smoke is from the north, which will dissolve all whole of Palestinians of Gaza at the second coming of Christ. The consuming fire of the Lord will dissolve his enemies. Where the Lord is, there will be smoke. Where there is smoke, there is fire. If he destroys all the remnant of Gaza but leaves 10, they will be alone. If he destroys all but 5 of them, they will be alone. If he destroys all but 1, he will be alone. God declares that none will be alone in God's appointed times for them. None shall be alone, right? So he's going to destroy all of them, every one of them. Not one will survive. Verse 32. What shall one of them answer the messengers of the nations? That the Lord hath founded Zion, and the poor of his people shall trust in it. The messengers warn the people of the Palestinian nation. They inform them that the warning is sincere and exact. The Lord has found Zion, God's kingdom, and the poor of his people, Israel, will trust in him. Verse Matthew, something Jesus said in Matthew 5, verse 3. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God. Right? So there you have it. I think that's the end of verse 32. So the people that trust in what the Lord is saying, right? The Lord has founded Zion, and the people of the poor has trusted in it. So all of us trust in Zion. The Lord founded it. Zion is God's eternal kingdom, by the way. And the poor of his people shall trust in it. I'm the poor of God's people. I trust in it. Right? We all are that trust in Jesus. All right? So it's not this to Jews. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Right? Okay. So there you have it. That's the interpretation, the correct interpretation of Isaiah 14. All right? Been very misinterpreted over the years, over the generations, over the centuries, over the millenniums. All right. So we move on to chapter 15 next. Share this with others. This is an important chapter to understand. Revelation 21, verses 1 through 3 is an amazing disclosure that Isaiah had first prophesied, then Ezekiel, and then John in Revelation through the visions from Jesus. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please hit like down below. Click on favorites so you can be notified when more videos come out. Until the next time, God bless you, and have yourself a great rest of the day.